It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Welcome, everyone, yes, to another episode of 41 is the Mic. It is game week. Very excited. I am Matt Derrick with Chiefs Digest, alongside Brazil enthusiast Nick Jacobs from KSHB 41. Nick, it's time. Talked about Chiefs Chargers and Sao Paulo.
Matt, I would not consider myself an enthusiast on that. As Xavier Worthy would say, a lot of what I know about Brazil is through Fast and Furious or movies, and also that Brazilian grill down there, the Plaza. So those have been my Brazilian experiences. So, but you will be able to catch the game on KSHB 41 if you were in the Kansas City market. We will be carrying that. I will be doing a pregame show from 5 to 6 on Friday. Then we will have YouTube's pregame show from 6 to 7. And then we have the game from 7 to 10 and post game right after. So it is a night to celebrate the Chiefs, the opening of the season, and Brazil, all in KSHB 41. Your home of the Chiefs.
It's going to be an exciting first NFL Friday night for Kansas City that I can remember. So,
outside of preseason, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, nobody counts preseason.
Oh, and then technically there was that one game when they played the Dolphins before the hurricane was coming back.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
4:05 during Vermeil era.
Forgot about that. So, well, we're going to party like it's Friday night football. So,
all right, good.
Sorry for all the high school football fans out there. You got some competition for one night, and the only thing I know about Brazil, I will say, is that our Brazilian steak restaurants and everything. So I just imagine that all the players getting off the plane will just have people coming up with them with plates of meat. So
I mean, so you're saying they're gonna get, like, at the one restaurant, they're gonna give them the card, the red or green card?
The green card just keep bringing the meat.
No, certainly possible, but I think your Brazilian culture's got much more than that.
It certainly, I'm sure, does. And the Chiefs should see it all apparently on that 2-hour bus ride from their hotel to the stadium. So.
There's certainly that possibility.
There's certainly that possibility. Those are probably going to be some things you're going to be hearing about this week because, yes, as the road team in Brazil, in case you haven't heard, the Chiefs get the second nicest hotel in Sao Paulo, which I know I'm not pronouncing correctly because I have an Ozarks accent. But it's depending on traffic, anywhere from, I understand, 90 minutes to 2.5 hours from the Chiefs hotel to the stadium. So I understand from the Packers experience last year, there was a police escort, but that doesn't necessarily make things better in Brazil. So it can actually slow things down, apparently. So it's going to be an absolutely rip-roaring time for, I think, the Chiefs in Brazil. So I wish I could say that this was a quiet week, Nick, but it was not for the Chiefs. Tuesday was maybe the quietest day of all, and that's when you're cutting down from 91 players to 53. Because obviously there was some even excitement that day and some questions. But let's start chronologically at the beginning. So Chiefs cut down to 53 players.
Yep.
And the biggest surprise of them all was that the Chiefs did not retain defensive tackle Mike Pennel. Just before that, they had gone out. And I guess after we recorded last week, Nick, they went out and made a trade for Derrick Nick. So Pennell's out. Derrick Nick is in. Derrick Nick is the only nose tackle on this team right now. And we'll talk about some of the practice squad additions, but with the Chiefs moving on from Mike Pennel and bringing in Derrick Nick, thoughts?
Yeah, so it's going to be long-winded here, so sit back and get your popcorn or whatever you have. So first off, the thing that confuses me the most about the Mike Pennel situation is it didn't sneak up on you. Like, he's 34, and you don't want him playing an entire game's worth of snaps of 60-plus snaps. And when you elected to sign him back during free agency and, kind of before the draft and everything, I was like, okay, yeah, you'll have him as a veteran. He'll rotate in, and, you keep his snaps at a certain level, and, you're good from there. And so, I mean, I assume that was going to be part of that plan, and then when you don't retain Derrick Nick, you're like, okay, you've seen that, like, you're not like his back that had kind of looked like it had some issues when you watch coach's film, that they finally were like, okay, that's gotten to the point where there's not much, he can do about it at this point in his career. So you go in with that plan. And then, as from my mock drafts, I put in 3 defensive linemen to the Chiefs. I put in a 1-tech, a 3-tech, and a DN. That wasn't by accident. It's because they needed to refresh that defensive line, because it can't just be Chris Jones and hoping somebody else wins their one-on-one, or that everybody is healthy enough to win their one-on-one. You can't just be Chris Jones makes a play and then that's how it goes. It's got to be more than that long term, with each passing year that Chris is in the NFL and his body has that wear and tear of the league. So that's where I was in that front and that thought process. So they had Mike Pennel. Okay, they go out and get Omar Norman-Lott. Okay, that's really more of a 3-tech. You didn't get the 1-tech, and that's why in my mock draft that ended up winning whatever contest you want to call it. That's why I had Williams from Ohio State. He ended up going to the Lions, but I had him as the 1-tech because I'm like, that's a guy that they can pair with Chris, or if they need to move him to 3, they could potentially do it. Obviously, the Lions take him, and as you and I have talked about, the Chiefs ended up going with Josh Simmons. So that's fine. Then they take Omar Norman-Lott. Then they do what they do with Omar Norman-Lott, to where he played a bunch, as you were pointing out during our OTAs and minicamp shows. He was playing reps at the 1-tech spot, and I'm like, talk. I was like, it doesn't. He's a 3-tech. So I was like, that's where his wheelhouse is. But then training camp, they do that, and that poor guy gets hurt in the first day of pads, soldiers through it, and does what he can. But you didn't get to see a lot of who he actually is as a football player in the preseason games at training camp, because he's got the ankle injury that I physically saw happen, that I was shooting video of on that play, if I remember correctly, because I think it was a 9-on-7. It wasn't a team at that point, but I do remember visually seeing it in person. I'm like, that's not good. So with all that long-windedness, what I'm getting at is, it seemed like with what they've done, that within the past week, they decided, well, we need more 1-techs now. But where was that urgency in July when there's more possibilities? Where was that urgency in June? I'm just kind of confused, and I don't know all the puzzle pieces, so that's why I'm giving them some of the benefit of the doubt, because they may have been working actively behind the scenes trying to get multiple people in those months. It just didn't happen. But I'm like, okay, if you weren't going to play Mike Pennel full time, which you shouldn't to begin with, then have another reliable 1-tech that's a veteran that's there, and you make that decision in late August, and you kind of split up the reps during camp and keep everybody fresh. But also, if there's people you want to develop, like Fabian Lovett, like Marlon Toya-Peluto, and apparently Omar Norman-Lott there for a while, then you give them all the opportunity to develop, but that's not the pressure of that they have to develop at that spot immediately. So just for me, from a long-winded perspective, it was a confusing thing. And I thought when they brought Nadi back, I'm like, okay, so that's the guy they rotate with Pennel, and both of them can kind of rotate back and forth, and you have reliable veteran presence in the run game. But whenever they released Mike Pennel and they didn't bring him back, you're like, okay, all right then. And then when they sign all they do in the practice squad, like you're going to talk about here in a minute, it's like, so did the D-line thing sneak up on you? Some guys aren't developing the way you want, or why all of a sudden are you signing an entire defensive line to the practice squad now?
And that's really truly the crazy thing is, I mean, the Chiefs are essentially rebuilding this defensive tackle group at the beginning of the season, and the work is not over. I was in a conversation with Brett Veach this week with the beat writers, and he addressed that head on. I mean, the fact that they had been having some discussions with some other teams about other players. They were in the market for Juwan Briggs, who went from Cleveland to the Jets for just a better draft pick, but they were trying to bring in him. There were other players they were interested in who just did not become available. So my takeaway from that, Nick, is that the Chiefs aren't necessarily done with trades. That if a player from another team that they're interested in, they can come out and help, they may still go out and do that. And the other thing, the other takeaway from what he said is that, hey, if the guys that they've got here, whether it's Derrick Nottie, you mentioned, and we talked about the practice squad, you've now got Marlon. You still have Marlon Tuipulotu that you've kept around. They brought in Broderick Martin, who is a 6'5", 330-pound monster. So
and on my draft board.
there you go. He's been a bit of a journeyman, though, but that's what's going to be available. Zach Pickens is a little bit more, I mean, he's smaller. I don't know if you would really put him in that true nose tackle one tech.
Yeah, he's built like a one tech.
Yeah,
put up there.
So
he's not athletic enough for a 3-tech.
yeah, a little bit smaller, and certainly smaller than Broderick Martin, but then a lot of guys are smaller than Broderick Martin. So
100%.
But you're trying to rebuild that, and Veach was pretty honest. Like, hey, if these guys don't get it done, then they'll go out and try some other guys. That is the takeaway from that, is that after what we saw from this defense in particular against Seattle, that kind of terrifies me against the run, Nick, because that's the first point of attack is the middle of the defensive line. And right now you'd say the middle of the Chiefs defensive line run defense is not necessarily great.
Yeah, and I'll just give you a little bit of a sneak peek alert here with the Chargers. With Omarion Hampton, and then we'll see if Najee Harris plays or how they go about that. Hampton's a much more physical back than people realize, and he showcased that in the preseason. So, like, the Chiefs are going to have to be right in their tackling, because like that dude's got a physical presence. He's young. His body hasn't taken the beating yet of being an NFL running back. So he's willing to take a lot of the hits that Pacheco took in year 1, year 2. Hampton's willing to take those too. And he's willing to deliver those as well. So, like, that's where Chiefs, from a tackling perspective, are going to have to be on point. And Harbaugh is going to test it out. He's going to try to wear down that Chiefs defensive line and try to really see how good they are at tackling, how good they are at pursuit, and how they can hold up at the point of attack. The thing going for them is on that Chargers offensive line, that right guard, right tackle combination right now is not ideal. Left tackle, left guard, center looks promising from what I saw there in preseason, but right guard, right tackle, they're a work in progress there too. So, like, if you're the Chiefs, if you can keep that left side of their line in check, I think you'll be okay on the other side. But then you get the Eagles in week 2, and you get to face the Jeff Stoutland offensive line that now has the tape of how you are lining and what your strengths and weaknesses are in the D line. So it is going to be a very interesting week 1, week 2 for the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. And then once you got to pass the excitement of reducing the rosters on Tuesday, and we have the discussion about Mike Pennel, and that kind of went on, and the defensive tackle obviously went on the rest of the week. Yeah. But then, Nick, to get the next story of the week, which is that the Chiefs will be starting the season without wide receiver Rashee Rice. He is going to be out for the first 6 contests, with his suspension stemming from the accident in Dallas in March of 2024. Chiefs and then Rashee Rice finally get resolution here, Nick. And this was, in some ways, best case scenario for the Chiefs. I mean, there were other options. I mean, obviously they were hoping for fewer than 6 games. I said all along, I mean, Chiefs were hoping for 2, preparing for 4, bracing for 6. It ends up being 6, but the NFL made it pretty clear that they were looking for something much longer than that. 6 was the negotiated settlement between the NFL, the NFLPA, and Rashee Rice. Chiefs were just kind of observers with the whole thing. Those were the 3 parties involved in the suspension. So you get resolution, Nick. And like I said, another reason why it was maybe best case scenario, had this gone to the disciplinary officer hearing that was slated for September 30th, the last time and the only time this process was used, it took 2 months for the decision to come out. Then that got appealed. So if you're talking about a 6-game suspension coming out in December, that would have wiped out Rashee Rice's postseason and just could have been a dagger for the Chiefs. So now you're done with Rashee Rice for 6 games, don't have him, but you've got him for the remaining 11 games in the postseason. And I still think Rashee Rice is going to have a monster year.
Yeah, I mean, with the Rice situation, I mean, I got told by a couple people that texted me in advance that, like, hey, NFL's they're trying to get to 10, and that's why. And then I responded to a couple of those people. I was like, well, then that's why this is out publicly today, because it's leverage point to try to get somebody back in the negotiating table. Otherwise, you don't put, at the time when the story came out that, you know, it was going to go to a judge and everything there on September 30th. I'm like, you're not doing this. Somebody's not leaking this out unless somebody's trying to leverage something to get them back to the negotiating table. Like, you don't make that public otherwise, because that had been going on privately for a little bit. And then, so like you said, I know you'd kind of been talking about what you'd heard from your contacts, and then, so hearing the difference between like that 2 to 10 range aspect of it, I'm like, okay, it's probably gonna be 6 to 7. And so that's what I told a lot of people when people would ask. I was like, I think they're going to negotiate in 6 to 7, because like that's kind of the happy medium in a negotiation. And when you put out who the judge is, and that's going to potentially drag on and this and that, then that's again another leveraging point, and you get to where you get to. And so the fact this is done before the Chargers game, the NFL doesn't have to have that storyline. Why, if Rice had a big game like he did in the Ravens game last year to open the season, that isn't dominating the NFL storyline for that, for that Friday, Saturday headed into the Sunday before they have all their other games from the noon, 3 and 7 o'clock windows. So the NFL doesn't have that for 6 weeks. You may talk about how Rice is suspended and gone, but him being on the football field doesn't create that agitation for other players that may go through, or having their stuff in limbo, or other teams that are like, why is he able to play and our players not out there, like the Vikings with Jordan, with Jordan Addison, and like they're kind of like, why isn't our guy able to play right now? If that guy, and all that. So then you avoid all that. That's done. And then once the suspensions, been seen through and everything, then it's kind of in the rearview mirror, more than likely, for the NFL and for other people, to where it just gets back to football for the most part. It doesn't diminish what happened, what the situation was, why the suspension happened, and the people that were impacted by it. But I'm saying from an NFL news cycle perspective, that kind of creates the resolution of that to where they move forward from it.
Yeah, and now we're moving on to the what's next for the Chiefs without Rashee Rice for the first 6 weeks of the season. So, they've got a few different options. But I mean, big part of it is just, to me, is that, whomever replaces Rashee Rice is not going to suddenly become the first target. What it's going to go down to is just that it's going to mean more from Xavier Worthy's, the Hollywood Browns. Those are the guys that you really need to stay healthy in the next 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, with Rice's impact, you need that whole wide receiver room to stay healthy and be as healthy as it can. You also need the tight ends to also be able to kind of pick up some of that. So Robert Tonyan may be one of those guys they need to help pick that up. Travis Kelce may be a guy they need to have help pick that up on that front. And then you just kind of look at the overall wide receiver group. The sneaky guy that they really probably need to help them get through parts of it, and you'll be surprised to hear this, it's going to be Tyquan Thornton. Like, his explosiveness may be part of the difference that they need, to where maybe him running deep helps Worthy be more explosive underneath, or Hollywood Brown be more explosive underneath, or give Juju Smith-Schuster a little bit more wiggle room, give Kelce a little bit more wiggle room, and then it can be vice versa, to where then Worthy may be that guy, and it gives him and Thornton the threat of that rotation deep, to where teams have to honor that and give more room underneath in that. And then that's when you bring in Brashard Smith, and maybe he isolates against a linebacker. There's just a lot of mismatches the Chiefs are going to be able to give. But the kicker of it is they're going to be facing Chargers and Eagles that are known for their zone coverages last year. And it'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs manipulate the zones over those first 2 weeks, how they go about attacking them, and what they do in the run game that kind of forces some of the issue. If they're going to give up those zones, what can you do run game-wise, screen game-wise, and some of that front, or with a running back in the flats or a tight end in the flats like Tonyan, to really kind of take advantage of some of those openings they're going to give in the seams, the flats, and some of those other parts if you're threatening deep and stretching their zone coverages.
Yeah, that's something the Chiefs are going to be able to do this, even without Rashee Rice, because you've got Xavier Worthy and Tyquan Thornton that can stretch stretch vertically and pull that safety's attention, both of them. And now all of a sudden you're just talking about maybe a running back and your other guys, your other tight ends up against linebackers in zone. I like those matchups for the Chiefs, and that's what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and stretch the field. Who else has to stay healthy for this team in order to have the success this year that they want to? I mean, we know Patrick Mahomes. We'll circle Chris Jones. Are there other guys on this team that you feel like that the Chiefs just cannot miss, especially maybe just getting off to a good start without Rashee?
So what I'm gonna say this early on, especially in the first 6 weeks, but the two, like you said, I still got to mention them and say why. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes. This team, this offense, everything goes as Patrick Mahomes goes. So everything that keeps him healthy, great job. Then secondly, Chris Jones determines how the defense goes. Who he is as a pass rusher, the havoc he can create with how quick he is, anything that allows him to stay healthy throughout the entire season. Those two are paramount towards your Super Bowl championship runs. Doesn't mean you can't get there. It's a different path to get there that may or may not work out. But those two are your true difference makers that decide a lot of how your season goes. Now, in terms of the 6-week aspect, in my opinion, the guys who are going to help really determine that is going to be, and this isn't just necessarily a health thing, but it also is, Josh Simmons. His ability to be healthy is actually going to that's going to play a big key factor in it. This isn't a health thing, but how Kingsley Suamataia does in those first 2 weeks is really going to impact how this offense can perform. Because if they have the time like they did against the Bears and their pass rush, and that's against the Chargers pass rush starters and the Eagles starters, then like that gives you a really big decisive advantage over what the offense was last year. Because now corners are having to stay back in zone longer. They're going to tire out. The Chiefs receivers are going to get more chances to find voids at that point. And Patrick's going to be a lot more comfortable, confident, and a little less skittish at times, and be able to really kind of decisively, like a surgeon, just slice through certain parts of some of those coverages. And where he needs to look completely and everything, he will have that time. And once he gets comfortable with that and he can reset his mind to that, then that's when that Chiefs offense could really take off. The underrated guys, I really think Robert Tonyan, I think Brashard Smith, and I think Tyquan Thornton are the underrated guys that if they're able to stay healthy, I think those guys can all collectively in different little pieces help pick up what you're losing in Rashee Rice. Because Worthy already is who he is. Hollywood already is who he is. And they're known quantities. The unknown quantities are those three guys in terms of what they can be. Now on defense, Nick Bolton and his ability to call the defense is much more paramount this year, especially without having Justin Reed there, and you're not sure yet where Jeffrey Bass is at. And you kind of, and with Jack Cochran having the injury he did, those are all collectively other parts of that puzzle. But I've named off everybody possible, and you're like, well, that's so many X amount of guys. Yeah, but I'm telling you, that's the cascading effect. I'm telling you, there's one platform that is Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones that puts you in an incredibly concerned category. Then you have the next categories, and then you go slower down. So I'm giving you the full list. That's a lot of different. If you're going up on a mountain, it's a lot of different elevations versus just here's the primary one.
Yeah, and I gotta put my vote in for Trent McDuffie too, especially on the defensive side, because Chris Jones is the guy that makes the whole thing go, but so much of your secondary is built around just saying Trent McDuffie is going to go out and take out the other team's best receiver, whether it's in the slot, outside, wherever it may be. You're just going to be using that Trent McDuffie in that spot, and if you're without him, that changes the entire secondary. I mean, you could take out any other player in that secondary and they're somewhat interchangeable. They've got replacements. They've got backups. McDuffie's the only one that you don't have a replacement for, to back up for.
True.
So I'm going to put he gets my star.
As you should, Matt.
All right, let's get to the game quickly. Got a few minutes here to talk about the Chargers and what this game looks like. What do the Chiefs need to do to pull out a victory in Brazil?
Yeah, so the first thing that stuck out to me when I was watching this year's Chargers, for the most part, on offense, Ladd McConkey's already in midseason form, And the guy who's sneakily going to be a bigger part of this offense than I think people realize is Keandre Lambert-Smith, a wide receiver. He's a good receiver, and he's got a really good rapport with Justin Herbert already. Herbert trusts him, and he can place out on a dime to him in a way that I don't think he feels comfortable with other guys. So I think over time, I think Keandre Lambert-Smith is going to be what they were hoping Quentin Johnson would be. So I think Ladd McConkey and Lambert-Smith are going to be their key two guys. We'll see with Keenan Allen what they do there. And then Trey Harris, I think he's taking longer to develop, and we'll see where he's at on that front. Left side of their line with Joe Alt and Zion Johnson. Both those guys they're stout. They got Bradley Bozeman at center. And from left tackle to center, I think they're very comfortable with what they have. They got Mekhi Becton at right guard, and from what I saw, he's been trying to get comfortable to a certain extent. And then Trey Pipkins really is he's gonna have troubles in pass blocking. Like that, if I'm the Chiefs, I am trying to cause headaches for the right guard, right tackle combination right now. And the fact they're not comfortable with each other, and the fact that right tackle is the weak link on that football team right now, that's where you're relentlessly going after to really kind of cause them problems. Like I already said, Amari Hampton, like he's the back that they needed last year. He's got the burst, he's got the physicality. He's going to be really good for them over the next 4 years. And like I said, we'll see what Najee Harris can do from a tight end perspective. Down the road, once he's comfortable, Gadsden's going to be a problem for the Chiefs. But up front right now, they don't necessarily have as much of an issue on that end. I'm intrigued to see this defensive line in true form right now, because Tua Pelotu, like as a pass rusher, just screams upfield. Khalil Mack, still the savvy veteran that's got strength, but like just overall, they scream up the sides, and they really try to funnel everything into their defensive line if they can from a run support perspective. The guy who I saw all over the field and when they had most of their starters out there was Gilman, number 32. He's their starting free safety. Keep an eye on him. He's very high energy. I'm not saying he's Troy Polamalu, but I'm saying he's got that level of energy. He always wants to be around the ball. He's always chirping. And he's around, and like you just got to keep your composure with that guy. So that was the early impressions I took away from watching the Chargers in the preseason. I looked through all 3 games, and I marked down who actually starts, who was role players, and so those were kind of the biggest things I took away. But I didn't see a lot of difference in scheme defensively than what I saw throughout the year last year when I watched obviously every Chargers game, because I watch every game in the NFL because I'm a sick individual.
Yeah, that right side of the Chargers offensive line is going to be kind of a target to attack. They thought they were reinforcing it with bringing in Mekhi Becton to be their right guard, and the Chiefs obviously are familiar with him.
Yeah,
might have some payback that the defensive line needs to deliver to Mekhi Becton. But when you got Trey Pipkins, who I like Trey Pipkins, I remember interviewing him at the Combine, and he's a good kid, but man, and Austin Deculus is their third string tackle. They don't even have listed on the depth chart right now, because that tells you just how the situation with the Chargers offensive tackles. It is not deep. So other than Joe Alt, you're right. There's going to be some places to attack on that offensive line. But the Chargers, I mean, they're a good team, Nick. This is not going to be a cakewalk of a season opener. Yeah, no,
Chiefs are going to have to bring in physicality with them. They're going to have to bring just as big, if not more, of a physicality against the Eagles. Then they'll already be in that mindset for the Giants game, and then boy, that Ravens game, that's going to be a intense one as well. So first month of the season, you'll really know where the Chiefs are at and where they need to work on from a playoff perspective, and you're hoping they stay healthy throughout that entire time, because that is a really the first 4 games is a tougher schedule than most teams normally have in a given year.
Chiefs have a busy week. We've got a busy week. No, you should listen to 41 is the Mike today. Tuesday, we're going to be back for our first full lightning round edition when we go to twice a week. So lightning round champion Nick Jacobs will hopefully have time to join us on Tuesday at 7 for
I'll join you. I just don't believe there's anything lightning about it.
first 1 hour episode. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode. Nick won't be able to join us, but we'll have fun on Thursday night. Maybe I'll see if I can't get another friend of the program to come join us. Friday, Chiefs game, and you got your pregame and postgame over on KSHB 41 that Nick will be calling all the shots for.
For pregame, yes, I'll be helping with post.
And so you will not want to miss either one of those. Game will be available on KSHB 41. We will be talking about it all week, and you can get your updates from us. I don't think I have anything else to say, Nick. It's just time for football. It's time to get this season started.
All right, Matt, with that, it's victory formation. We're out of here.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.